in this technical demonstration, we're going to configure Centrify Access Manager. We've already gone through the installation process, but there are a couple other steps we still need to do. The first is going to be to connect it to our Active Directory environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Access Manager right from the desktop. And of course, the first thing it's going to ask is to connect to a domain controller. Now we can connect using a different user, but I'm logged in as a domain administrator, so I don't need to make that modification. So I'm just going to click OK. And now we're going to go through a configuration wizard for Access Manager. So I'm going to click Next. I'm going to use the current connected user credentials. Again, I'm a domain administrator. This is going to be used for some of the required changes that we need to make. The notification handler being the most common. I'll go ahead and click Next. Now we need to decide how we want to generate our deployment structure. We can choose not to deploy a Centrify deployment structure, but keep in mind that means that Centrify management could be scattered throughout the entire forest. If we go ahead and generate a Centrify recommended deployment structure, this will isolate all of the Centrify management into one particular portion of the forest. And that's what we're going to do here. This is also commonly referenced as the Centrify OU. Now we can do this as a default deployment structure or a custom deployment structure. We're going to maintain the default deployment structure and click Next. And we need to select the location. So I'm going to click Browse. And as you can see here, here's my domain structure. I'm just simply going to select omicron.lab. Now what this is going to do is it's going to create the Centrify OU right off of the root of omicron.lab. We'll go ahead and click OK. We'll click Next. And as you can see, it is a scripted process. We'll go ahead and click Next once again. And now that we have our structure in place, it's now time to identify some specific components and where they're going to reside within the Active Directory environment. So from here, we need to first select our licensing container. Now, by default, this is going to be omicron.lab/centrify/licenses. We're not going to make a change to this. This is a commonplace. It's also based on best practices. So we'll go ahead and leave this intact and we'll click Next. Now you'll notice that all user accounts in the AD Forest are going to be granted read permissions to this container. Now this is going to be for license verification to make sure that licensing is applied to those managed systems and those users. So we're going to go ahead and click Yes. And now we need to add in our license key. Now again, this can be a key file. This can also be a key code. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And now that I've added my licensing, it's now time to choose that default zone container. Again, you'll notice that we are going to create a default zone container, which means all zones that we create will be based off of this default container. And it has already been selected for us under the Centrify OU. So again, we're not going to make any changes here. We'll go ahead and click Next. We'll need to delegate permissions. So we're going to grant computer accounts in the computer's container the permission to update their own account information. So we're going to go ahead and leave that intact. We'll go ahead and register the Active Directory Administrative Notification Handler. We'll go ahead and check the box and click Next. And we'll also activate the Centrify profile property pages. We'll go ahead and confirm our options that we have selected. And now as you can see, the configuration has been completed. I'll click Finish. And now as you can see, the Access Manager has been launched automatically. And it looks like any other traditional MMC that we see in a Windows environment. We will have our zone container, which will populate later. And we've got a dashboard or workspace to identify specific details based on our navigation.